Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Coaches. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jennifer Tamborski. I'm the CEO and Chief Strategist of Virtual Marketing Experts. We're a digital marketing company that specializes in working with business owners who have a desire to make an impact on the world through their courses, coaching, and consulting services. We really help them to accelerate their business and scale their impact. So here's the thing. I truly believe that coaches have the ability to change the world, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I created this YouTube channel to help get their message out. Today, I am so excited to have Melissa join me. Melissa, tell our audience a little about who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. And I am an integrative health practitioner. It's a relatively new field. People might not have heard of that before. What I am trained in is a blend of naturopathic, Ayurvedic, traditional Chinese, and orthomolecular techniques to helping the body come back into balance and heal. So it's holistic health. It is proactive health. But I also, my main clientele is working with those people that are struggling today with being told there's nothing wrong with them by their mainstream medical doctor because their blood test showed normal, when they know something is wrong. And now they're confused and they don't know where to turn. And I want those people to understand that they're not alone and to guide them on their healing journey with all of these techniques and protocols that I have to help them get to the root cause of their issue. Look for toxicities in the body, which we remove. Look for the deficiencies in the body, which we support to bring the body into balance, at which point it can heal itself.
That is so fantastic. And for those of you that are watching in the future, right now we are in the fall of 2020, so we're still in the midst of COVID. And so this is such a timely topic. I mean, it's a great topic for any time, but right now in what's going on in the world, it's so incredibly important to really understand your health as opposed to medicine, right? Because that's the difference, isn't it?
That is the difference. Totally. And our society and first world countries are excellent at acute care when it comes to emergency medical care. We're fabulous. But in today's age, where we're failing people is with chronic illnesses, and our healthcare system, I actually call sick care, because most people are being sent away saying nothing's wrong, and then no suggestions or offers are provided as to what you can do to feel better. And therefore your body keeps talking to you and sending you messages, and you keep getting sicker. And then at some point you're sick enough that you fit into the box that the doctors have that matches to a pharmaceutical drug that they would prescribe to you, so that you can mask the symptoms, not necessarily heal, but no longer be aware that something's wrong because the symptoms are masked. That is sick care. That is helping people only once they're really sick. My work is I want to empower people in their healing journey, in their health. Let's face it, your health is your greatest wealth. How can you run a business? How can you raise a family when you don't have your health? And there's a great saying that says, man can have 1,000 dreams until he doesn't have his health, and then he has but one. And isn't it true, right?
It's very true.
But many of us take our health for granted. And until I got into this field, I did as well. When we're healthy, we think about all the other things we want to be doing in our life. But this is a great time, as you say. COVID has brought health to the forefronts of our mind. This is a great time for that check with ourselves. What am I doing to look after my health? Am I doing enough? Because aside from COVID, we are actually the sickest, the most stressed out, the most sleep deprived, and interestingly also the loneliest, despite social media,
right,
than we've ever been, right?
Why is
and
that?
Lonely because that's a great big huge question,
right? It is.
Why is that? It's an excellent question, because our food industry is broken. So if we go back in time just 50 to 60 years, for all of the time that we were on the planet prior to that, Our food was grown for your local community with farming techniques that were not for mass production, and our food was not sprayed with chemicals in order to have better crops, etc.
Right.
In terms of larger crops, I should be saying. So that is what shifted. And at the same time that shifted, women went back to work. And of course, I support women working. But the food industry came out with convenience foods in order to help women get a meal on the table after a long day at work, which initially started out with every good intent of providing healthy, nutritious meals for families with both parents working. But soon the food industry got smart and realized, we can make a lot of money with this. How can we make these products more cheaply? How can we mass produce them, send them all over the world in order to increase our profit line? So they started using GMO ingredients, chemical ingredients for longer shelf life, et cetera, et cetera. And as they started mass producing everything, fields were not being allowed to settle. So the soil is overused, and the soil no longer has the nutrients that were once in our food. So today, you have to eat 9 oranges to get the same nutrients out of that one orange than what my grandmother ate 60 to 70 years ago.
Wow. That's
Who
amazing.
eats 9 oranges, right?
I like oranges, but that's a bit much.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody out there might be thinking, oh my God, 9 oranges, there's so much sugar in that. But when you're eating a full orange, not just the juice, you're getting all of the fiber, so it's not causing an insulin spike, but still, no one is eating 9 oranges in one sitting. So our food is nutrient deficient, and it's loaded with chemicals and GMO foods. And in addition to all of that, the food industry decided, let's make people addicted to it so they buy more. So let's put a little salt in, let's put a little sugar in and cater to those addictive sides of our taste buds that make us want more. And before we know it, our food industry has kind of taken over control of us for the purpose of maximizing shareholder profit. And this is all happening unbeknownst to us. We're all just going about our lives trying to, work and make money and raise our family and enjoy life. And if you're not tuned into it, it's happening around you without you having that awareness. So that, on top of the fact that our medical industry is also for profit, and our doctors are not taught nutrition at medical school because the pharmaceutical industry is also for profit. So they pay for the medical schools, for the professors, and they encourage the professors to teach hours and hours and hours upon hours of this is what drug you give for this issue. But nutrition, maybe medical doctors get an hour of nutrition in medical school, if that. So that's where we've gone wrong, really, really badly wrong, because none of this is focusing on optimizing human health. It's all focusing on optimizing shareholder return.
So what do people do? I mean, what's the other option?
Exactly. So what do people do? They need to become aware, and that's where getting my message out along with all the other integrative and holistic health practitioners out there trying to do this is to educate people on this reality. And I'm not a doomsayer type person. It's literally, there are things that we can all be doing. So shopping the perimeter of your grocery store, staying out of the aisles with all the boxes of processed foods, right? Whole plant-based food is what our body truly needs. It does mean making more meals from scratch. And that means changing some habits, but it's a choice, because when your body's talking to you and you don't feel well and you've got low energy, there's a reason. And when I can show you how to boost your energy simply by changing the way that you're eating, your body responds very quickly. And the interesting thing is you may be a little bit resistant to it at first, but when you regain that energy and you start to feel so much better, everything becomes a choice. And I'm not asking you to do it 100% of the time, because we're all human and none of us are perfect. But if we can get to a place of that wonderful 80-20 rule, then you can have the energy that you want, or you can feel as good as you want while still enjoying some of the other food that draws you in every once in a while. So it is about becoming more educated, becoming more aware that we have control over our health by the choices of what we choose to put in our body. And that is food and hydration.
So before we got, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure I got this question in. Before we got on the call, you were telling me about our two brains.
Yes.
Explain that. Explain what you mean by our bodies having two brains.
Awesome. So of course, everybody knows we have a brain in our head, but we actually refer to the gut as our second brain. And the reason for that is there are as many neurons lining our gut lining as there are in our head. In fact, there's more. And until I got into the health industry, I had no idea. And what's really fascinating is our brain and our gut are connected through the vagus nerve, which wanders through our body around our organs between our head brain and our gut brain. But it is such a direct connection that it's almost as if you had a phone, an old dial-up phone, and I had an old dial-up phone. But if you picked up your phone on your desk, you wouldn't even have to dial. I would just know that you had done that and be there answering, right? So it's kind of like command center or something.
Right.
So, and our gut actually sends 9 messages to our brain for every message the brain sends to the gut. So I used to think that the brain in my head was in control of everything around my life, but it isn't. I now think of it as the gut is the command center and the brain is the operation center that makes it happen. And when one isn't feeling good, neither is the other. So stop and think about it. If you have a headache, how are you feeling in your gut? If your gut is off, are you feeling a little brain foggy? Well, in this day and age, with the high levels of stress, the poor sleep, very often people are feeling brain foggy or they're just a little off in the head. So their gut is off too. When we don't get enough sleep, it kills off good bacteria in the gut and puts our gut out of balance or into dysbiosis. Too much stress does the same thing. Many people are walking around with what we call a leaky gut, which means there's tiny little holes in the intestinal lining of our gut, which is only 1 cell membrane thick. And little tiny food particles are getting into our bloodstream, which shouldn't be happening. The same thing can happen with our brain if it goes unchecked. And very often, because I do work with people with concussions as well, when we have a concussion, everyone's addressing the brain and healing the brain, but nobody's looking at the gut. People with concussions very often end up with a leaky gut. Now, leaky gut leads to autoimmune disease. Leaky gut just leaves people feeling uncomfortable after eating with pain or bloating, gas, and left unchecked can cause further issues down the line. So when I work with somebody, I'm not just looking at one part of their body. I'm actually looking at their whole being because we are so interconnected in this way that it's really important to see how one part of us is affecting another.
That is fascinating. And thinking in my own health, I'm like, oh yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Like I definitely remember times when I had an upset stomach and I have a headache at the same time. So speaking of the gut, a lot of people, because we were talking about sleep deprived and stress and all of that, which causes things like acid reflux and, you know, all of those kind of things. So people are taking antacids that are sold over the counter. And what's your opinion on, do they help? Do they harm? What should they do?
So they actually do a lot of harm, especially in the long term. And interestingly, they are the most over-the-counter sold drug, which tells me there's a lot of people out there struggling. And that doesn't surprise me because, as I said, we are the most stressed out we've ever been. And stress does cause breakdown within our body in a number of areas. I've already mentioned it killing off good bacteria and putting the gut into dysbiosis. Another thing that it does is we have a esophageal sphincter at the bottom of our esophagus, right as the food goes through that sphincter and down into our stomach. And that sphincter is meant to stay closed so that food can go down, but nothing should be able to come back up. But under stress, it doesn't seal closed as well, which allows the stomach acid, which we need in order to break down our food in our stomach, to come back up into our esophagus and cause that burning sensation and acid reflux. So people automatically think, oh, I have too much stomach acid. I need to take an antacid to stop it. But it's not that you have too much. It's that that sphincter isn't working properly because of stress, mostly because of stress. There can be other reasons sometimes. So what we should instead be doing is we can do some home remedies to help with the stomach acid situation. One of them, for instance, is to make sure you're not eating too close to bedtime. Because if you're eating too close to bedtime and your stomach is still digesting food, you've still got stomach acid rolling around in there, and then you go horizontal, it's way easier for that acid to go up into your chest or feel like it's in your chest. But another thing is to be managing that stress level and ensuring that when you're eating, that you're not in your fight or flight mode anymore, and instead you're in your rest and digest mode, which is your parasympathetic nervous system. But how many people are eating on the run because we're busy, right? Well, guess what? When we're in our fight or flight mode, digestion doesn't even work, doesn't even function, because when we're in that mode, our body is ready to run, to flee, fight, or whatever, get out of danger, right? And even though we're not having to run away from lions and tigers anymore, our brain doesn't know the difference between the constant barrage of children at you. Maybe it's a fight with a spouse. Maybe it's a boss asking for this. Maybe it's another colleague bumping up a deadline and now everything's due right now kind of thing. And you're just like, ah, and we've all been there. That has us in fight or flight. If we're now like, okay, it's noon, I have to eat, we grab something and we're literally eating on the run, our body can't even digest it. So again, we eat food for energy, but the body can't break it down. So it's either trying to pass out food that's larger chunks than it should be, which can cause diarrhea or constipation, no fun for anyone, or it's storing it as body fat because it can't even process it and doesn't know what to do with it right now, particularly if it's processed food and it's all man-made chemicals. It's like, what is this? Or somehow your body manages to get it out, but it hasn't broken it down, so you have no benefit of the nutrients, vitamins, and minerals. So in another hour, you're hungry again because your body doesn't even really realize you ate. That's what happens when we eat under stress. What we need to do is eat in our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest state. And that is when our body can break down our food properly. And when we do that, we allow the process to happen, and we're so much less likely to have any issues with acid reflux. Now, I have a really quick, easy trick to help people drop from one to the other as you practice this. Because everything takes practice, changing habits, right? And it's replacing a good habit with a bad habit. So it's using your breath, because you always have it and it costs you absolutely nothing. And this will take you less than 5 minutes. So I call it 5-5-7 breathing. So you have your meal ready. You're gonna sit down and you just do a check-in. How am I feeling right now? Am I still completely stressed out? And very often the answer is yes. So you're gonna breathe in for a count of 5. You're gonna hold your breath for a count of 5. And if you can't quite do that, work your way up. So maybe you're gonna start with a count of 2, and then the next few times it's gonna be a count of 3, but ultimately a count of 5. And then exhale for a count of 7. When we do that 10 times through, the brain goes, huh, I thought I was breathing like a stressed out person, but I'm actually breathing like a calm person. I must be safe, and it will switch us into our rest and digest state. And the brain knows that, because if you were running away from danger, your exhale would not be longer than your inhale. You would likely be panting. And so that's what clues the brain in, is when that exhale is longer than the inhale, the brain knows we're calm.
That is such a fabulous tip. And we are coming to the end of our program. I could probably talk to you for another hour or so about all of this. And I'm sure that our audience is probably thinking the same thing. So I tell them how to get a hold of you if they want to carry on this conversation or move to that next step. How can they connect?
Absolutely. So my website is simply betterbrainhealth.info. And if there's somebody that is struggling with not getting answers they're needing to a specific health issue, they can actually click work with me at the top, and that will allow them to book a 15-minute quick consult with me so that we have a chance to have a little bit of dialogue, what's going on for them, to determine if I am the right person to be able to guide them on their healing journey. And then from there, we go through the health intake form, et cetera, et cetera. I also have online courses on my website. So for others that are maybe just looking to boost their energy and want to know more about that, they can check that out as well.
Awesome. I will have that link as well as a couple of other of her social media links in the show notes below. So please reach out to Melissa if you are even just curious about the two brains and how they connect with one another. Because I know my health is important to me, and in this day and age with everything that's going on, I'm sure everyone is much more focused on being healthy. So I would love for them to connect with you. Thank you for joining us today, Melissa. And thank you guys for joining us in Conversations with Coaches, and we will see you next time.
Thank you very much.